What if I told you that in 1947, in a small psychiatric hospital in rural Vermont, there lived a child who claimed she could see death itself? Not as the hooded figure we imagine, but as something far more intimate and terrifying. She said she could see the threads that connected every person to life. And more importantly, she could see when those threads were about to snap. The staff at Willowbrook State Hospital thought 7-year-old Margaret Thorne was simply another victim of childhood trauma, creating elaborate fantasies to cope with abandonment. They had no idea that her strange drawings and whispered warnings would soon become the most documented case of unexplained phenomena in American psychiatric history. Margaret arrived at Willowbrook on a cold February morning, brought in by social services after being found alone in a farmhouse with her deceased grandmother. The old woman had been dead for weeks, yet the child showed no signs of malnutrition or neglect. When asked how she had survived, Margaret simply said she knew her grandmother's thread was getting thin, so she had prepared Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell. The hospital's chief psychiatrist was immediately intrigued by the child's unusual behavior. Margaret would spend hours drawing what she called people maps, intricate sketches showing human figures connected to long, flowing lines. Some lines were thick and vibrant, others appeared frayed at the edges, and some were cut short, ending abruptly in dark scribbles. But it was Margaret's uncanny ability to predict deaths that truly disturbed the staff. 3 days after her arrival, she approached nurse Patricia Collins and said, "Your thread is getting gray around the edges. The fraying starts tomorrow." Collins, a healthy 32-year-old woman, laughed off the comment. The next morning, she collapsed in the hospital corridor from a massive brain aneurysm. She died 4 days later. Dr. Hartwell began keeping detailed records of Margaret's predictions. The child would often approach patients or staff members, studying them with an intensity that made adults deeply uncomfortable. She would tilt her head, as if listening to something no one else could hear, then make matter-of-fact statements about their threads. To elderly patient Thomas Fitzgerald, she said, "Your thread is already cut, but it hasn't fallen yet." Fitzgerald appeared to be in good health for an 80-year-old man. He died peacefully in his sleep that very night. To maintenance worker James Morrison, she whispered, "There's a dark spot moving up your thread like a spider." Morrison was diagnosed with aggressive lung cancer 2 weeks later. The most chilling incident occurred with Dr. Hartwell herself. One evening, as the psychiatrist was reviewing Margaret's case files, the child appeared in her office doorway. Margaret's face was pale, her eyes wide with what appeared to be genuine distress. "Dr. Hartwell," she said, in her small, clear voice, "your thread. It's not supposed to end for many years, but there's someone with scissors getting close to it." That night, Dr. Hartwell's husband attempted to poison her coffee with rat poison. If she hadn't been called away to handle a patient emergency, leaving her cup untouched, she would have died. Her husband later confessed to having an affair and wanting to collect her life insurance money. As word of Margaret's abilities spread through the hospital, staff members began avoiding her. Some requested transfers to other facilities. Others started wearing religious symbols or carrying protective charms. The child seemed oblivious to the fear she instilled, often expressing confusion about why adults would run away when their threads were perfectly healthy. Dr. Hartwell's notes reveal an increasingly disturbing pattern in Margaret's behavior. The child began drawing what she called the thread makers, tall, shadowy figures that she claimed were responsible for attaching the life threads to people. According to Margaret, these beings lived in the spaces between walls and emerged only when someone was born or when a thread needed repair. "They don't like that I can see them," Margaret told Dr. Hartwell during one of their sessions. "They keep trying to cut my thread, but it's different from everyone else's. It's not attached the same way." When pressed to describe her own thread, Margaret's demeanor would change dramatically. She would become agitated, sometimes violent, claiming that her thread went down instead of up, and that it touched the cold place where the broken threads go. The hospital's files contained dozens of Margaret's drawings from this period. Unlike her earlier people maps, these later works showed increasingly disturbing imagery. The thread makers appeared more frequently, depicted as elongated figures, with multiple arms, each hand holding enormous scissors. The threads themselves began to look less like lifelines and more like puppet strings, with the human figures appearing to dance helplessly at their ends. Dr. Hartwell's final notes about Margaret are dated October 13, 1947. She wrote, "The child's condition appears to be deteriorating rapidly. She claims the thread makers have discovered her ability to see them and are now actively trying to silence her. She speaks of a cutting ceremony that she must undergo. I fear we are losing her to complete psychotic break." That night, Margaret disappeared from her locked room. Security footage, primitive though it was, showed her door opening and closing on its own. The child was never seen walking through the corridors, yet she was captured on camera in the hospital's basement, standing in front of a wall and speaking to empty air. The audio from that footage, only recently digitized, is nearly incomprehensible. Margaret's voice can be heard saying, "I understand. But if you cut my thread, who will warn the others when theirs start to fray?" A response comes from what sounds like multiple voices speaking in unison, though no other figures appear in the frame. "The cutting has already begun. Little Sia, your thread was severed the day you first saw us." Margaret's body was found the next morning in the hospital's old morgue, seated peacefully in a chair with her hands folded in her lap. The autopsy revealed no cause of death. Her heart had simply stopped beating. But the story doesn't end there. 3 months after Margaret's death, Dr. Hartwell received a package with no return address. Inside was one of Margaret's drawings, but this one was different. It showed Dr. Hartwell herself, connected to a long, healthy thread. But, standing next to her was a small figure, clearly Margaret, holding what appeared to be a needle and some kind of golden twine. Written in Margaret's careful handwriting, at the bottom of the page were the words, "Some threads can be mended, if you know how to see them." Dr. Hartwell lived to be 93 years old, far exceeding her family's typical lifespan. Other staff members who had been kind to Margaret also seemed to enjoy unusually long, healthy lives. Those who had been cruel or dismissive faced a series of unlikely accidents and illnesses. The Willowbrook State Hospital closed in 1962, but urban explorers and paranormal investigators continue to report strange occurrences in the abandoned building. They speak of a child's voice in the basement, warning visitors about frayed edges and scissors in the dark. Some say that if you're very quiet in the old hospital corridors, you can still hear the sound of Margaret's pencil scratching against paper, drawing her endless maps of human threads. And perhaps, if you're very unlucky, you might hear her small voice whisper your name, followed by words that no one wants to hear. "Oh no, your thread is starting to fray." So the next time you feel an unexplained chill, or sense someone watching you from an empty room, remember Margaret Thorne, the child who saw people as threads. Remember that according to her, we are all connected to life by the thinnest of lines. And there are beings in the shadows, whose only job is to decide when those lines should be cut. Some were frayed, some were cut, some were already gone, but Margaret learned how to mend them. The question is, in a world where death watches us all through thread-thin connections, would you want a 7-year-old girl to be the only thing standing between you and the scissors in the dark? The files of Margaret Thorne remain sealed in the archives of the Vermont State Hospital System. Officially, she is listed as a childhood psychiatric case from the 1940s. Unofficially, her drawings continue to circulate among collectors of anomalous phenomena, each one a chilling reminder that perhaps we are all more fragile than we realize. And in the ruins of Willowbrook, they say, the sound of pencil on paper continues, as a ghostly child works tirelessly to map the threads that connect us all to life and to each other.